Two of the hottest neighborhoods in Orlando are named after a milk company and an oddly shaped lake. I'm Phil Kruse, and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle. Today, I'll be interviewing Giovanni Fernandez, the developer behind the Hourglass District and the transformation of the Milk District. Giovanni is also the broker of National Real Estate, a firm he and his wife created, which is behind much of the construction going on in and around these districts. His office is located right there in the Milk District, next to Sideward Brewing, right next to Stasio's Deli as well. And they share the parking lot with Otto's High Dive, the Cuban restaurant, which guess what? Giovanni also owns. Well, Giovanni, welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I think I was mentioning to you that I really enjoy these kinds of things because I think so much of our community wants to know what's happening. And I think that so many times we're playing the game of telephone and you're sharing things and people are saying, I heard this might happen. You know, I was actually at a community meeting for a townhouse project just 2 nights ago. And somebody came right up to me and they said, hey, I heard you're not developing those apartments yet on Curry Ford because you guys had an environmental issue. And I just, I thought it was funny because, we did the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies on that project like 6 years ago and have done them again since. And we've never had an issue with environmental on that property. So I love these things because, hey, hop on, listen to it. I'm going to be very, straightforward about what we're doing, what we're not doing, why we're doing it and why we're not doing it. So I love sharing with people.
Well, thank you, Giovanni. I appreciate that. And for the listener out there, Giovanni is exactly as he just stated. He's just a great guy, heart on his sleeve, very community driven. This is one of the many reasons he and his wife, Elise, are so successful. Obviously, what we're going to be talking about today, guys, is the past and the future of the Hourglass and Milk Districts, a large new townhome community that Giovanni just alluded to that he's bringing to the Hourglass area, and why Giovanni and his wife, Elise, chose Orlando, and more specifically, these districts to operate their family business in. But before we dig into all that, I just want to let you know about Giovanni and National Real Estate. If you want to find out more about what he's going on, his development projects, he's got a multifaceted real estate business. You go to nationalrealestate.com. Also, I mentioned he's the owner of Otto's High Dive, which made the Michelin Guide here recently. It's the best Cuban restaurant in Orlando. You can go to ottoshd.com, or you can find them on Instagram, of course, at Otto's High Dive. And Giovanni, always working, always growing. He's launching a new real estate construction brand called Moxy Home Builders. And they're going to start building subdivisions and things of that nature. So if you see Moxy out there, think of Giovanni. And of course, I am also a real estate agent. And one of my main lead sources are listeners like you. So when it's your time to make a major real estate decision, think of me, Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K. You can find me on all social media platforms. Just put KRUSE in there, put real estate, put Orlando. You'll find me. And check out my podcast on YouTube, Spotify. You're already here right now, watching and listening. Just subscribe, hit the bell. You know what to do. Enough of the business stuff, guys. Let's move forward. I personally love St. Patty's Day at the Clouded Cottage right there in the Hourglass District.
Yeah.
And I love listening to live music from Mr. Glenn Lestort, who's the music teacher at Boone High School, again, right there in the Hourglass District. And he plays saxophone regularly and has been for years at Hourglass Brewing there. And guess what? I've hired Mr. Lestort to play at 2 of my Christmas parties. He's amazing. So these types of spots, Clouded Cottage, Hourglass Brewing, these are typical spots for both the Milk District and the Hourglass District. And they've become a go-to destination for not only home buyers, but bar hoppers and restaurateurs. So my question for you, Giovanni, is what prompted you and Elise to snap up properties and start developing in those particular areas?
I think there's a saying that I like to say, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And I think that as a community grows, if they aren't out there watching other, it's not common that people in a community would be traveling to other cities to see how they're growing, right? So it's the advantage of so much of our population growth here in Orlando over the last 15, 20 years is bringing so much diversity. And when people like myself and Elise moved here in 2013, we said, oh man, like we're really missing like this thing and that thing. And it's funny, we laugh all the time that Elise is from New York, I'm from LA, and our office sits right next to Stasio's Italian Deli. That's not an accident. When we went to go put our office in this building, we said, well, what do you need on the corner? Well, there's no Italian delis around here. What are we doing? So immediately we found a great family that was a local business. And that was the other part is, in so many cities that have not grown yet, you would think it's the opposite. You'd think there's a lot of local businesses like, back in the day. But reality is that when cities are small, the only real players that are going to those cities are your chains, your McDonald's, your I don't know, Olive Gardens, all these kind of more strip mall kind of, regional and national brands, because they establish themselves in the market that way. And it's not until developers go into some of these bungalow neighborhoods or urban edge communities around downtown and say, hey, look, there's a real opportunity to do something called adaptive reuse, which is really what we've become known for, is we've gone into these communities, instead of immediately tearing things down, we said, which buildings can we really bring back to life first? Right. And not only can we bring the development back to life, but we think that we can bring the businesses back to life. And there are so many great businesses in Orlando that had started here. Like I'll say, as an example, Tamale Co. Tamale Co. only had food trucks, right? Yep. And so maybe they didn't have an exact guide on how to open their first restaurant, but we felt that in combination, we could teach them how to build out their space and help them in that process. And so we did that. A lot of people obviously know Foxtail Coffee, but you may or may not know that the Foxtail in Hourglass is actually, I think it was their second real location that they ever built. And we built it together with Alex and Ian. We were sitting there, picking and how. And so today, fast forward, they've got, I think it's like 50 plus locations. But all that to say, we enjoy bringing the local businesses to the local people. We felt very much that down in the Hourglass district, there was a pocket there just south of Lake Como that didn't have an identity. It was just a random county stretch surrounded by city property. You had the Conway group and you had Lake Como, and the Milk District had started, but there was like this missing identity. And so we just accidentally started calling the area the Hourglass District, and the community embraced it and loved it. And the real story behind it, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when we were redeveloping that corner, that main corner there on Crayford and Bumby, where Foxtail, Tamale Co., Claudia Cottage, where all that is, when we submitted our first set of plans, our architect said, hey, what do you want to call the plans? And we're sitting in a room and we're looking at a map of, what we're talking about, the whole area. And a gentleman who does a lot of my leasing, we're looking at it, and he's like, oh, look, like, what about this lake? And like, we look at it and we're like, hey, yeah, like, it's the Hourglass Lake. Well, that's a cool name. Let's just call it the Hourglass District. We put it on the thing. And then next thing we know, a couple of journalists picked up the name from submitting the plans and wrote a few articles about what we were doing. And then realtors and people who lived in that area, they just started calling themselves the Hourglass District. And we never marketed it. We never pushed it on people. It just is that they embrace being able to call themselves something now. And then we said, great, let's get their opinion about what else we should do here in this area. And so in all the community meetings that we've done and all the development we've done, we've always really taken a serious approach to listening to their feedback. And I think that's what that community has loved about us. And they're allowing us to do new development in that area. And I think that's kind of a good segue. When you've finished adaptive reusing the buildings that were there, you now have properties that cannot be redeveloped. There were a couple of buildings on that stretch that even if we wanted to save them, they just weren't structurally sound. And so we've come up with what we call highest and best use for the future for that area. And we're going to be doing a couple of new developments that there wasn't anything there before. Like the townhouse project we're doing was just in a vacated lot behind the Foxtail strip area there. And so with all the need for housing in Orlando and the desire for quality product in this particular area, we really wanted to take advantage of things like that. So that's what we're doing.
Giovanni, that's amazing. First of all, I want to say that story of naming the Hourglass District is awesome. I just assumed, like everybody else, that there was, you guys seem so deliberate with everything you do. You talking about training tamale company and owning a restaurant. We figured, oh, that Hourglass selection was really deliberate to know that your partner just pulled it out of his butt there.
Yeah,
And I'm one of those real estate agents that did exactly what you said. Like, oh crap, we can market this area.
right,
Um, and it's funny how humans work. We just want to be able to name things and
totally.
I used to live in the Hourglass District behind Charlie's Bakery, and when you guys started coming in there and what we perceived to be as rebranding, we're like, oh, this is amazing. The whole neighborhood was a buzz and still is. So I just want to reach out to you, say thank you for what you're doing from someone who used to live there and enjoys the establishments, and thank you for sharing that story. We're definitely going to get more into your townhome development and into more of some of these other things. I want to make sure the listener heard no chain restaurants. Giovanni and Elise, to me, it's amazing. They want to support small businesses. I read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a couple times here recently. There's a story about how the mall owner chose to switch their paradigm and instead of just being combative with their tenants, to go in there and support their tenants. And that's exactly what I thought about with what you just said with Tamale Company. If you're a small business owner and you can hitch your wagon to a landlord or property owner that's going to support you and support your business, I mean, that's like a gift from God. And I'm sure the Tamale Company folks and everybody you work with, Foxtail and so forth, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about this because it's important.
Please.
Everybody's on their own journey in life, right? And since I was a young kid, I think at about the age of 11 is where I decided I wanted to be in a real estate developer investor.
That's
And
awesome.
when you're on this journey, there are so many ways to go about real estate development. You see a lot of institutional real estate developers, REITs, these big asset managers, private equity, et cetera. The part that I love about what we do are all the friendships and the stories I can share with you from those local businesses that we have grown and helped. I mean, I can walk into Stasio's and the relationship I have with that family and who they've been able to become as a business, it's like you can't trade that for anything. There's no amount of money. And by the way, on this corner, we got lease agreements presented to us for 20% more in rent that we could have gone with regional brands, and we chose not to. So it goes back to what you value. And again, I can say a great story about Sideward Brewing and their family, Tamale Co. and their family, Foxtail and their family, Claudia Cottage and Scott, who owns Claudia Cottage, and they got kicked out and their building got torn down by a Walgreens development,
Yeah.
right? And we created a home for them instead, just down the street with a different concept. And it's okay for both of those things to exist. It's just that I'm much happier being this person. And that's the part that's fulfilling for us. It's all the relationships we've built. Just to bring up COVID really quick, everybody was really concerned about whether they were going to survive through COVID.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses didn't pay their landlord in COVID time. And fortunately, because of our relationship, we immediately went to them and said, hey, how can we help you? And they immediately said, if there's any way that we can, continue to just keep things normal and pay, we're gonna. And we did great through that time, as hard as those times were for people in the restaurant space, et cetera. So I think it's important it speaks volumes about your relationships that you have along your journey. So
You're absolutely right. I have written on my dry erase board in front of me right now, relationships. And in life, I think, especially as we continue to grow personally and in business, we understand, and some people understand it sooner than others, that relationships are what we have. The stronger and more diverse and robust your relationships are, the better family life you're going to have, better friendships, and better business. And you just said it. You have great relationships with your tenants. There's synergy, and they're willing to pay you their rent. So it's not that you're doing that on purpose, but it's just a natural way the world works. I couldn't agree with that more. And I'm going to kind of segue into using the relationship aspect. And what you've mentioned a few times is family, right? your family, their families, and your connections with them. I want you to explain to the listener, if you would, is why is family so important to you, and how do you include your family and your kids, if you don't mind sharing, in your businesses?
Sure. Well, I think that a quick thing I'll point out is that the goal of any person, who has a family is, in my opinion, should be to watch progression happen.
Yeah.
That next generation should be more successful than your generation was. I think I learned that from my grandfather. My grandfather made a huge sacrifice. He owned a bar and nightclub, as many people kind of know the story now. And if they don't, in Cuba in the 1950s, my grandfather owned a bar in Cuba, in Manzanillo, Cuba. And when Fidel Castro took over in 1960, they came and presented my grandfather with kind of the only option, which was, hey, you no longer can have a business, but you can go pick up your check in Havana. We will pay you X amount of dollars for walking away from your business, because now this is a communist country. So my grandfather had to leave his business, went to Havana. When he got there, they basically told him to kick rocks. So there was no check there. And I laugh about it because if you know my grandfather, he probably laughed about it. That was what was great about my grandfather. The guy was amazing. Anybody that was ever around him, he was just infectious. Like the energy that you would always have a great time. That's why on the side of the building at Otto's, you see on the street side, we write the word abundancia, which means abundance. My grandfather really believed in, hey, if you're going to come have a good time, order a few drinks, have a few appetizers. What else can I give you? Enjoy life, because that's all you have. And so coming to the United States, my father was only 10 years old. My grandfather brought the family over, and they waited like 8 years for permission to come, and they flew to Los Angeles. It is really different to grow up in a family that comes from that background, because you have a different kind of appreciation for things. There's a lot less entitlement for things. You wake up every day wanting to take advantage of the opportunity. It's ingrained in you that this is the greatest country in the world. I heard that thousands of times in my family growing up, right?
Sure.
So much pride being from the United States, although they were born in another country. And I share this story sometimes, when these things get brought up. I remember going to kindergarten for the first time. And I remember that my dad said, hey, when you go to school, they're going to make you line up, do things. They need some kind of organization. And he said, they're going to have these lines. They might be colored, yellow, blue, green, and they might tell you, go stand on the yellow line. Well, my father said, don't you ever, and he used a curse word, don't you ever effing stand on that line. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you will never stand on any line. He's like, you will leave that line. Now, don't make a fuss. I don't want you, getting in trouble. Do not stand on that line. It's a mental thing.
Yeah. And
it's just a way to start to teach you from day one that you won't conform to this. You are not part of just this general, population. You need to be a leader, and you need to be an entrepreneur, and you need to kind of live your life in this way. And you're special is kind of what he was always saying. And my father was really good at building confidence in us, me and my two sisters. I don't know if you know my sister Giselle. She works at Fidelity, but you'll want to meet her. She's great. Okay. She's a lot of energy, really good at what she does. Nice. So I have two sisters, and all of us just grew up with so much confidence about what we could go do. My dad would have us watch etiquette videos, because he said one day you're going to probably have dinner with the president. You're going to want to know how to which fork goes where and the whole thing.
That's awesome.
So that's who my father was, and now who I'm trying to be for Junior and Otto is the kind of father that has to teach them, that we are successful already and they have a lot already, but what things are important? What are the things that we're going to value? Are we going to value a house? Are we going to value cars? Are we going to value? Yes, there's a part of that that's a beautiful thing to accomplish and have and enjoy. But also, I I called the restaurant Otto's because we wanted it to be looking back at my grandfather, but looking forward at Otto, and him understanding local business and understanding that we're a part of the community. And so family is important. They've been a part of a lot of our developments. When we first started buying all the properties down on Curry Ford, they would get all tagged up with graffiti. Same thing on this corner. I have pictures of Junior and Otto with paint spray guns spraying over the graffiti. Same thing here on the corner, Bumby and Robinson. They've grown up around it. I sometimes joke that I think Otto could probably take my place today and make just as good real estate decisions as I could as a developer. He's really something else. And then
how old is
Junior,
he? Just as a frame of reference.
Otto's 12. Yeah, Otto's 12, and Otto's already got a couple of his own businesses, and he's just built that way. But what's beautiful is that Junior is just like his mom, and I would be nowhere without Elise. I may have all the stories and the ambition and the entrepreneurship, but you've got to also have, that side that's grounded, that side that, operationally, that's very intelligent, that thinks, is more analytical. So Junior has Otto, and Otto has Junior, and I have Elise, and Elise has me. And that's how our family operates, and we kind of joke all day about it.
Wow. I mean, that was just pure gold that you just spit out there, bud. You inspired me. I have 3 young kids, 8, 6, and 4, 2 boys and a girl in that order. You and I are pretty aligned, man. I have to say, I have the same mindset, same way of treating my kids, but I love the way you talked about how your father talked about the standing in line, emphasizing leadership. People are what you tell them they are, and people don't realize that a lot. And it's especially true with kids because they don't have the baggage and the personal stuff that they've already defined. They haven't defined themselves yet. You might define yourself as a father and a property developer and entrepreneur. Kids that are 6, 8, 9, they don't know what they are. We tell them what they are, and they're going to aspire to that. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, and I guarantee you there's listeners out there that is going to make a major impact.
I spend most of my time whenever I do any kind of mentorship meetings or anything like that where I'm sharing with people. The first 2 things I always say in every one of my meetings is, who are you and who do you want to be? Yeah. I mean, those 2 things I think are probably, the most important thing and really probably the biggest issue that our society across the board has is so many people really don't know who they are or where they stand, and they really don't know who they want to go be. And they're kind of in search for this. So if you can figure those things out, you're going somewhere.
You're doing better than most too at that point. Guys, real quick, I'm going to do a quick pivot. If you love that pure gold Giovanni just spit out there right now, I have other amazing interviews with local Orlando business leaders in my library. I interviewed Bruno Zucchini of Pizza Bruno, Caleb Harold of Hawkers, Thomas Ward of Pig Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to keep doing that. They all have inspirational stories. They're all local entrepreneur, non-chain store type folks. And don't forget about my real estate services. I neglected to mention before that a portion of all my real estate commissions goes to charity. I volunteer at the New Image Youth Center, and that's where I devote some of my charity dollars as well. But if you have a charity you're passionate about, and we partner together, I'll happily donate to that charity. And again, find me on all social medias. My name is Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. Put Orlando, put real estate. You'll find me. Okay, back to Giovanni. You and Elise are obviously not sitting still. This is pretty obvious. What new tenants or buildings or renovations, improvements coming to the Milk District or to the Hourglass or anywhere nearby in Greater Orlando? What has you most excited?
In preparation for my community meeting 2 nights ago, I was driving down there, and sometimes I believe in being what I call practiced and rehearsed, and like thinking through how I want to talk about things, or what is that I'm working on. And one of the things that I was working through is down in the Hourglass district. Once we complete what we will complete over the next 5 years, the value of the real estate that we would have created there was approaching like $175 million.
Wow.
I think that's a pretty big number for like a block. And so the major piece in there is the mixed use development that we're doing, that's 6 stories, about 12,000 square feet of retail on the bottom, 244 apartments, I believe it is. Really a kind of housing that I think is needed in that particular location. There's really not much around there that fills that need. Again, I mentioned earlier that there are places we want to adaptive reuse and use what's there, but on that particular corner, that was not usable. And so
talking across from where Foxtail is and
that's
Tamale
correct,
Company.
where Hourglass Brewing is. And by the way, really cool, we figured out a way to kind of nestle in Hourglass Brewing that's there now and keep it as part of the building. So we're building around Hourglass Brewing so that it still has the local business and it still has that old kind of piece to it, which we thought was important. But again, you know, look at it like this. That community in that area and really all of Orlando, in 2001, we had 1 million people. In 2015, we had 2 million people. So we've grown 1 million people in that time. Today, we're like 2.7 or 2.8 metro, something like that. When you think about development in these particular downtown urban edge neighborhoods that are established, you have to consider all the people that were there for a long time and for generations and what they want. But those people need to consider what all these new people also want, right? And I think that that's kind of a disconnect sometimes. I feel like we've figured it out by going in there and first respecting all the existing generations that have been there by redeveloping and keeping buildings and bringing local businesses. But now we find that they trust us and they respect the new developments. And so to get something permitted like that, like a 6-story building on that block, is not an easy thing to do, but it does tie back to Curry Ford Vision Plan and what Curry Ford West is trying to do. And so we try to be smart about it. We want to appeal to the new population there. We want to appeal to the city's projects and what they want to do with their vision. And then we also want to be successful ourselves. And so it's a win-win-win for everybody. So that project is really exciting because I think that will mostly change that whole area of Curry Ford and Bumby. I think that there's a lot of great single family homes in the area, and we are currently rebuilding and building new homes. We just sold, I think, 4 homes in December, all $1 million homes. And that's okay. And the reason I have to say that and point that out is because a lot of people talk about affordable housing. Yeah. I love affordable housing. You know, whoops, my lights went off in my room.
All right, no worries.
So,
good.
Yeah, it's a sensor light, you know. Sure. So I guess I wasn't moving. I usually talk like this, but you got me like tamed, right? I'm on the line right now.
I got you focused.
Yeah. So, you know, but people talk about affordable housing, and I spent a majority of the first 3 quarters of my career redeveloping and remodeling really tough neighborhoods. I believe in that. But there's nothing wrong with understanding, defining, we were talking a few minutes ago, who are you? Well, the Hourglass District is not an affordable, attainable housing location, in my opinion. Yeah. In my opinion, it should continue on from Delaney Park down, from Thornton Park over. It should be part of Lake Conway's growth. I really believe that this is an area where executives, and this is an area where we need to drive the economics of Orlando by bringing great businesses to downtown and the urban edge of downtown. And those people always come into town. They want to look at transportation. They want to look at housing and where will their people live. And these are not people who are uneducated and not successful and not making money. And there's nothing wrong with someone being successful and wanting to live in an expensive home. And so there's a great mix in this area already by what's existing. And we're wanting to build new things that are a way for people to live together. And so there are, in addition to the single family homes in those apartments, we're building a total of approximately 72 townhouses between 2 sites. One is at the warehouse site at 1700 South Bumby that we're in the process of trying to get rezoned and looking for support on that. And then one that we already got entitled behind Foxtail. And the price range of those townhomes are going to be not inexpensive. And the quality of them, right? Like, we're not building super simple housing either. The apartments that we plan to build Those are not wood frame, stick built, institutional style apartments. Those are block and plank. The houses that we put in, just their appliance packages, I think were like $30,000. You
Wow.
know, we do not think that every time someone develops in the entire city of Orlando, it should just be, oh, affordable housing, affordable housing. Why? Why
Yeah.
should it only be that? Is that all we want to be, is affordable housing? So I think that we have to go into certain markets in certain parts of our city, and we have to be proud to do everything. We have to do a little bit of local business. We have to do a little bit of remodeling and appreciating the old bungalow style houses and selling those at great price points. And we have to build new houses, and we have to have those be a little bit more expensive. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of everything.
Sure. Well said. I can say that your passion comes through in spades. I can see it on your face. If people are watching on YouTube or if they're listening, I guarantee you they can feel the passion. So I'm just so happy and I feel grateful that somebody like you and Elise, has hitched your wagon to areas like the Hourglass District and the Milk District. Because if you hadn't, who knows, right? Who knows what would be happening there? And I want to just ask you one more question about the townhome project, the one that has been entitled, meaning you guys are pretty much already through the mess of the city and the county. If you had to throw a dart, and I know this is a hard question to answer, but roughly speaking, when do you think those townhomes would be available for the average person to purchase?
So we're working with DAP Design on the architecture.
Okay.
They will be completing their vertical plans literally next Friday.
Nice.
We already completed the civil drawings, and we've submitted some of those to the county, and we've gotten our first comments back. To make a very long story short, we'll be submitting the full package to the city, including DAP's vertical, probably by the first week in March. It usually takes probably 3-4 months. So March, April, May, June.
Right.
Then we'll start the earthwork, probably July 1, let's say. July 1, and it'll take probably through the end of the year, and we'll start building the vertical December, January, February.
That's awesome. And guys, if you didn't pick up DAP, D-A-P, DAP Design, local architecture firm, I happen to know who they are because I mentioned I volunteer at the New Image Youth Center. New Image Youth Center purchased a building. They're based from a grant they received in Paramore. They're going to demolish a building. They're going to build a new community center to support what they're doing with America's underprivileged youth. And DAP is providing their architectural services to the New Image Youth Center completely for free. And what they've put together for them is amazing. And I'm blessed to say that I was able to get my buddy Garrison Green as a senior project manager. He's doing the pro bono project management on the GC side. And so I'm really excited. And I just wanted to give an additional shout out to DAP because it shows you what kind of business they are. This is going to be my last.
Really quick with DAP though, let me interrupt you because I'm going to bring something together here. You mentioned that Elise and I are launching a home building company called Moxy Home Builders.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind Moxy Home Builders is that we believe that most builders, production builders and subdivisions around surrounding areas of Orlando are what we call stuck in their mold. The same stucco box, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage looks the same over and over and over and over. Every single subdivision. We want to disrupt that.
Nice.
The way in which we decided to start disrupting that is DAP actually has bought into Moxy. So DAP and National Real Estate, we actually own Moxy. They have ownership in it because they're going to be the architectural element to that. And so we are going to we have our first project near the Villages. It's called Boulevard Oaks. Boulevard Oaks will start building the models in May. And DAP's come up with some really cool mid-century style, very unique style homes that we're going to sell. Price range there will be about $350,000 to $400,000. So again, people talk a lot, but actions always speak, right? And so I mentioned a few minutes back, I don't have a problem with attainable or entry-level housing. I'm literally building 160 of them in a different neighborhood, right? So you just have to know what fits where. But DAP is definitely a key to our unique, proposition to go into the market and be designed forward, but still affordable.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. And there's some free marketing for you, Dap. Good luck. We both agree you're good company. I'm going to completely change the subject, and something that I'm personally curious about. You are clearly a property developer. That's pretty obvious. But you also opened and owned Otto's High Dive, the Cuban restaurant we've mentioned a few times in the Milk District. And what a shock! Something that you are involved with has become a smash success. I don't think anyone who's listened this long has any surprise to understand with you at the helm that they would be successful and on the Michelin Guide. But how do you go from property developer to restaurant owner? Do you have any experience owning restaurants? And why is the restaurant, in your opinion, such a success?
Yeah. So let me start by saying that it's hard to be successful at anything in life if you don't have a lot of commitment towards things and a lot of passion for them. I'm sitting at this computer right now. I look at the clock on this computer sometimes. It's 4 a.m. very often when I'm looking at it. And I say to myself, this is what it takes. It's the grind that gets you to that success. And when opportunities present themselves and you decide to commit to it, it requires a lot. And you have to be really interested in the word collaboration. I think that where I've been most successful in anything that I've done has been through collaboration. One might say that just my relationship with Elise is a collaboration, and that has made us very successful. When we bought these buildings back in 2015 on the corner of Bumby and Robinson, I knew that at some point I wanted some kind of legacy piece to my grandfather. And so the timing wasn't right initially. And then probably around 2019 time, I said, okay, I'm going to go to Ryan over at Innistruct, and I'm going to have him kind of help me start to reimagine this old little house that was there, and let's kind of reface it. So I built it up and bricked the front and kind of, created all those open, the sliding doors. And we did what we know how to do first. We changed the real estate. And then we did what we know how to do next. We reached out to a couple of people that we knew, and we started sharing what our ideas were. We wanted to put a throwback bar restaurant to my grandfather in there. And Garrett from Sideward Brewing said, hey, I know a couple of guys that are local guys that are looking to do a rum bar, and that's pretty similar, right? And they really know the business. And so I met the 3 gentlemen, Justin, Sean, and Chris, but specifically Justin, who was going to be working day to day in the business. When I met Justin, it was like meeting a young version of my grandfather. He is the kind of guy that if anybody watching this goes into Otto's and sees him or hangs out with him, he is the kind of guy that will make you feel great about whatever is going on inside of 30 seconds. He just makes you feel welcomed. He's very talented, but nobody's going to be successful without collaboration. So he needed us because we owned the real estate, because we understood business. He had never owned any kind of business or restaurant bar before, but operationally, and his ideas and his cocktail program, and Sean with his culinary background, and Chris was more of their business side, who does a great job of kind of working on the details of the operation, while Elise and I are very high level. So what we've created there is, initially for the first year, it was like we were involved every single day in the build out process, in the menu, and the operations of it and everything. And a lot of people would say that investors and operators don't usually get along. Right. And in our situation, we felt ourselves always magnetically coming back to each other because we had something they didn't have and they had something we didn't have, and we all wanted it to work. We believe that Otto's number one priority is not to make money. We don't say that out loud, and we're fine making money and it's done well, but that is not our goal. Our goal is to bring something to Orlando that Orlando didn't have as much of, to make it a place where people come and celebrate and love each other and abundancia and the whole thing. Yeah. And it has turned into that. It's a vibe, it's a culture. We continue to want to make it something that's established and there for the next 50 to 100 years. We will continue to try and improve the quality every single day, because that is our goal. It is about respecting our community. It's about respecting our history. And when you have a story and a foundation and a passion to execute at a high level with quality, you're going to find success. I think too many times I'm seeing restaurateurs and business owners in Orlando that are looking at the glass half empty, and they're talking about how times are tough, or they're talking about how the bottom line and cost goes up. That's just business.
Yeah.
That's what every entrepreneur needs to face. So focus on the things that are going to be unique to the market and unique to people that they want to come enjoy, because that's what's important. So create moments for people, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, no kidding. Best Ropa Vieja in town, as far as I'm concerned. I'm from Miami. I know a lot about Cuban culture, dated a few Cubans. I'm sure you can imagine. So it's an awesome spot. If anyone out there listening or watching hasn't been to Otto's High Dive, it's just a unique, cool. It's cool. I mean, it's just a cool place.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I have a last question here that I'm not going to ask you because you've answered it like 100 times, which is, a piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs or property developers. But you literally every, I think, 3 minutes have imparted some sort of entrepreneurial wisdom. So I just want to say thank you. I've learned a lot. I'm feeling inspired on this side of the camera. So I'm hopeful that vibe and feeling is going to permeate throughout the ether there to whoever's watching and listening. So Giovanni, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for having me. What you're doing in sharing with the community, and then I know a lot of give back that you do. I mean, I think is everybody playing like the important role to them that they value. And then again, that's a collaboration. I mean, I think that's what is community. So everyone's playing their part and everyone's having a good attitude. I can't share this story or clarify things for people if you're not asking me about it. So appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. Guys, Orlando for me is the best city in the United States. Obviously, Giovanni and Elise saw something all those years ago when they decided to move here and start their career. And people like Giovanni and his wife, Elise, are a huge reason why, in my opinion, Orlando is the best. We're so lucky and blessed to have a property developer that has the mindset and the vision that Giovanni and National Real Estate and his team has. Orlando is growing. We are the fastest growing city in Florida. It's just so exciting to be working and living here. And guys, don't forget, if you want to learn more about the property development side and real estate side of what Giovanni's got going on, nationalrealestate.com. Check out Otto's High Dive at Otto's High Dive on IG. Don't forget about the Moxy Home Builders. And of course, don't forget about my real estate services. I mentioned a portion of all my commissions go to charity. Find me everywhere online, Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. And of course, like and subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere, so that you can hear awesome guests like Giovanni and all the other guys and gals I have coming up. And always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Thank you again, Giovanni. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, guys.